Welcome to SciTech Culture with Steve Kern Ben Warner, where we examine science, technology and culture in the 21st century. Visit our website at scitechculture.com.
Well, what a difference 1 week makes. So, officially welcome to lockdown life, Steve. You're joining us over here in Melbourne, Adelaide now in lockdown as well. I'm sure that's it's all part of the fun. But the great thing is we can still do podcasting while we're forced to stay inside.
Well, that's right. It's been a very cold, wintry week here in Adelaide, and so lockdown hasn't been a problem, to be quite honest.
Absolutely. Might touch on that a little bit later, particularly on the Tokyo Olympics topic we're going to talk about towards the end. But going to start with a bit of a fun one, which I saw making the rounds this week, this story of Cockatoos learning how to flip open garbage bins and then teaching each other how to do it, just kind of, I guess, emphasizing the point that there, that level of intelligence that you can see in animals and birds, etc. And I just thought it was funny that these cockatoos would know how to not only learn it for themselves, but also spread the word around their colleagues to figure out how to open those bins and forage for food.
Well, everyone knows cockatoos, do what they like, and they do it when they like, and I guess for them, sharing an idea of how to get some more food or create some more trouble is probably something that amuses them. And I do think that probably they've got a high enough intelligence to be amused.
Absolutely. I mean, the other thing that was being discussed with this particular story was just the, I guess, sort of social fun aspects of the animals, that even though, it may be that you think that they're freaking out or screeching or whatever when they're hanging upside down somewhere or something, but they're actually just hanging out, having a good time, amusing themselves and whatnot. And I thought it was just a bit of fun, particularly, I guess, if you think about like broader, sort of discussions around how the way you teach dogs or cats to react to things or whatever. That it's an interesting sort of field of study, if that makes any sense.
Well, that's right, and I mean, birds are very different to mammals, we shouldn't think of them quite like ourselves. And, I think a lot of people that watch birds, I think, see a lot of behaviours that are really quite interesting. Yeah. And those behaviours are, sometimes very social too.
Absolutely. All right, we'll move on to our next story here, and continuing the whole, billionaire space travel, story. Jeff's finally made it into space with his Blue Origin craft, and obviously that got a whole bunch of attention. I did happen to, chuckle when he stepped off the lander or whatever, and in his cowboy hat and going woohoo and all that sort of stuff at the end of it, which I thought was hilarious. Or between that and him thanking every Amazon employee and customer for paying for the trip. Yeah. But I thought the more interesting aspect to his whole part of the trip was getting Wally Funk to actually join the trip. I thought that was actually a pretty nice and appropriate touch, given the story around how she was rejected from the original sort of program 60 years ago, and even though she was potentially more qualified than some of her male counterparts that got to go, and now after all this time, she had the energy, she had the excitement to go still, and she proved them all wrong, I guess, by jumping in there and going up into space, even if it took a billionaire to pay for it.
Yeah, I think she was a great story, and you can see, I think. I wonder who Elon's going to take with him. But it's a great move by Jeff Bezos. And I think that while some of his behaviours and even thanking the rest of us for paying for it was a little bit crazy, I mean, it's fantastic that she got to go. Although, on the other side, I mean, we've been talking about balloon trips, and we're talking about sort of effectively Branson's rocket plane is what it is.
Yeah.
And this is an old-fashioned rocket, but the irony is that Branson's plane is 50s technology, and really Blue Origin's is 60s. It's not a very big rocket. It fires for 4 minutes. It scarcely gets above 100 Ks. and then by 9 minutes you're back down. I don't know. I don't know that I'd be paying big bucks for that, even if he has got the biggest windows in any spacecraft in it.
Just on that, is there? Could you see? I mean, I could. I don't think it's too hard to imagine that at some point in the future there'd be, like longer trips per se, where they can get around the technicalities and probably the commercial viability options as well, in terms of being shot up there and doing an orbit or something. So at least you've got a couple of rotations around the Earth or something for at least a couple of hours, so that you can take it all in, enjoy it, etc., before coming back down. But we might be a bit off that. Like, it might take a while to get to something like that, but this might be the beginning of that sort of thing.
This is interesting, and you hear a lot of things, but it's hard to know what's actually true. So they're talking about using these rockets now to get people to the ISS, which I don't know how that works, but I guess it pays for the ISS or something. But more interestingly is Elon has got rockets powerful enough now to take floating space hotels up.
Yeah.
So it might only be 2 or 3 years before there's a hotel up there and you can go and spend a couple of nights.
Which could be interesting, as long as it's all safe, of course.
Oh, well, it's only as safe as it can be safe, and this is the whole point. So I'm sure it'll be safe enough, but probability would dictate at some point, the more people you put up there, the greater likelihood that there is something will go wrong. And that's not to dampen anyone's enthusiasm, because if I was going into space, I'd want to stay in a space hotel. There's 4 minutes of weightlessness and looking out big windows doesn't really do it for me.
Well, maybe we can hold on to that, the idea of hanging out in a space hotel, hanging out at the bar, checking in for a couple of nights. Sounds like a fun holiday, something definitely different.
It definitely would be different, that's for sure.
Absolutely. All right, and COVID will probably make a feature in this particular topic too as we go through it, but obviously starting with, I guess, the positives is that the Tokyo Olympics has finally commenced after a lot of angst and a lot of consternation and, the obviously infamous 1 year delay. They had the opening ceremony. It was last night for us. We're recording this on a Saturday, and it was a bit different in the sense that there was no one in the stadium, so it kind of looked like a dress rehearsal rather than the usual sort of pomp and circumstance that comes around with the opening ceremony activities. There's a whole lot of aspects to it, and good on them that I guess they had to make it happen, despite a lot of pushback from the Japanese public, etc., that weren't really all that keen for it to go ahead. And given that, again, COVID being what we were discussing earlier, there's always that sort of spectre looming over it that it could be touch wood, hopefully not, but there could be some super spreading potential there if things don't go right. I guess it'll remain to be seen what happens after a couple of weeks when it's all over and either nothing's happened or something's happened, whether it was advisable to go ahead with it.
Oh, look, I watched the ceremony last night because in the last 5 years I've forgotten how long and slow they can be. However, it was spectacular in parts, and you've got to congratulate them for going ahead. It's probably not the right idea. There's probably going to be some negative consequences of them going ahead. But really, I just don't know how you can't not go ahead. I mean, I think for the games not to go ahead, the athletes themselves would have to not want to compete. And the fact that athletes have gone wanting to compete at the games means that it kind of has to go ahead, even if probably more broadly it shouldn't. But we'll see what happens. Hopefully it'll be contained. Hopefully it'll go off without a hitch, because this games, I think, will go down in history anyway as, human spirit trying to overcome, COVID, and I just hope we win. I hope we win gold.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that's the another aspect to it is that with all the athletes, they would have been training for years and years, and the lead up to it, you know, could have easily been, you know, 2014, 2015, even before that, or maybe even a little bit after that. You know, they had their sights set on, you know, attending these games, and you know, I guess when the pandemic rolled around, you know, early 2020, that must have been like, you know, the absolute worst case, you know, heart-shattering scenario for all of them, given that that's their entire life that they've been working towards.
Well, that's it. And they did say last night, they gave the stat that 70% of athletes only ever attend one Olympics. So, you know, that can be your one shot to be the best you can be in whatever your chosen sport is. And as I say, if the athletes themselves didn't want to compete, then that would be understandable, and then you wouldn't have the games. But enough of them have wanted to get together and compete. So I think for them, it needs to go ahead.
Absolutely. Well, just finally, I guess I just wanted to circle back to, you know, our current situation here in Australia at the moment, and the fact that, you know, we've still effectively got 3 states in lockdown, another 160 odd cases announced today in Sydney, and who knows what it'll be by the time, you know, this little episode goes to air on YouTube. You know, it's not looking good, but there was some context provided in terms of the numbers, in the sense that, you know, it's not like what it is overseas, etc. And again, just to remind everyone that, you know, even though there are thousands and tens of thousands of cases being recorded in other countries at the moment, are relatively small. Outbreak seems curious in terms of our reaction to it, but I guess it feeds into the fact that, you know, it is a concern based on our approach to suppressing the virus here at the moment in terms of keeping the numbers down.
Well, that's it. It's us trying to stop it getting out of control. And I mean, there's only 2 phases of COVID, and that's that bit where you've got control of it. And then after that, you don't have control over it.
Absolutely. A lot of interesting discussion too around, you know, the place of AstraZeneca, etc. in the lineup. I wouldn't be surprised if there's another push to, you know, try and get it out to more people, etc. And I think that has been in some of the rhetoric that's been happening lately. And then there was that curious sort of advice around, at least in Sydney, for Pfizer shots to be extended out over a 6-week period as opposed to 3, so that more first shots can go out to people, etc. It's an interesting time, at least in terms of the Australian response. And again, I don't think a lot of people saw that, you know, this particular scenario could happen twice. I guess, you know, it was like, oh, we did it in 2020. Let's put that in the rearview mirror, and it's not going to happen again. And it seems like we're right back where we were last year, particularly at this time of the year.
Well, yeah, that's right. And I mean, look, it's a Delta strain now, which is obviously more contagious. It's effectively another disease or another COVID variant, you know. So last year is not this year. Look, we can bang on about it for hours. You know, with the benefit of hindsight, really, our initial phases of vaccine rollout were just probably too slow. Should have, you know, been 2-week phases instead of 2-month phases. And to be honest, if that had been the case and AstraZeneca had been available more broadly to the population earlier, there would have been a greater uptake. And we wouldn't be in this situation now. I think while getting vaccinated is absolutely, you know, has to be a priority for everyone. If you're able and willing to get vaccinated, you get vaccinated now with whatever vaccine you can get your hands on. But the reality is it's too late. You know, the only route out for Sydney now is a proper lockdown and vaccination at the same time. Otherwise, you know, I think from the experiences we've seen in Victoria, it can drag on for months. So, yeah, it's probably a knife edge in Sydney at the moment. So let's hope that they can just work their way through this.
Absolutely. All right, we might wrap it up there. So don't forget our website, scitechculture.com. You can get all of our links and content there. You can subscribe to our YouTube and Vimeo channels, our RSS feeds, and watch us on any and all of your devices. And we greatly appreciate your visits to our website. All right, so that's it for this episode. We'll catch you next time.